years now. She works as a receptionist at a dermatology clinic. Nothing fancy, but we made it work. We have one daughter together. She's 11 now, and she's the only good thing that came out of this mess. Our daughter was born 2 years after we got married, when I was 34 and my wife was 29. When we first got married, things were great. My wife was fun, energetic, always smiling. We'd go out on weekends, take our daughter to the park, and have family dinners. I thought we had something solid, something real. But here's the thing about my wife that I should have paid more attention to from the start. Her father spoiled her rotten growing up. I mean, the man gave her everything she ever wanted. New car at 16, paid for her apartment through her 20s, bought her designer clothes, took her on trips, and she never let me forget it. My dad would have handled this better. My dad never would have let the lawn look like that. My dad always made sure my mom had nice things. It didn't matter that I was working 50 hours a week at Walmart, trying to move up, trying to provide. It was never enough. I wasn't her father, and that was my biggest crime. About 2 years ago, things started changing. My wife became distant and cold. She'd come home from work and barely say 2 words to me. She would snap at me over the smallest things. I would ask her how her day was, and she would roll her eyes like I just asked her to solve world hunger. The intimacy stopped completely. We went from being intimate maybe twice a week to nothing. Zero. When I tried to initiate anything, she would push me away. Said she was tired. Said she had a headache. Said she wasn't in the mood. Every single time, there was an excuse. I tried talking to her about it. I asked her what was wrong, if I had done something to upset her. She would just say she was stressed from work, that I was being needy, that I needed to give her space. So I did. I gave her space. I backed off. I figured maybe she was going through something and she would come around eventually. Months went by. Nothing changed. If anything, it got worse. She started claiming to work late more often, sometimes not getting home until 8 or 9 at night. Started going out with her girlfriends more frequently, 2 or 3 times a week. She joined a gym and started going there 4 or 5 times a week, sometimes for 2-hour sessions. I actually encouraged her, told her I thought it was great that she was taking care of herself. I'd stopped checking our credit card statements around that time, trusting her when she said she was working late or at the gym. I had no reason to doubt her. We'd been married over a decade. We had a daughter together. Again, I thought we were solid. She started dressing nicer for work, wearing makeup she never used to wear, buying new clothes with money from her paycheck. When I would compliment her, she'd barely acknowledge it. I'm not stupid. I knew something was off, but I didn't want to believe it. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, that I was overthinking things. We had a daughter together. We had a life together. She wouldn't do that to us. But then one night, about 7 months ago, I woke up around 2 in the morning. My wife was not in bed. I got up to check on her, and I found her in the bathroom with her phone, smiling at the screen. The second she saw me, she locked it and put it away. Who are you texting at 2 in the morning? Nobody. Just scrolling through social media. Go back to bed. That's when I knew for sure something was going on. The next morning, I called my brother. He's always been the practical one, the one who thinks things through. I told him what was happening, how my wife had been acting, my suspicions. He didn't sugarcoat it. Brother, you need to find out what's going on. You can't just sit around wondering. It's going to eat you alive. He was right. I needed to know the truth, whatever it was. So I hired a private investigator. It cost me about $5,000, money I'd been saving up in a separate checking account I'd opened 8 months earlier. I never told my wife it was an emergency fund, which I guess it ended up being. So she never knew about it. Plus, it was tied to my paycheck deposits, and she'd long stopped caring about our finances as long as the bills got paid. The investigator was an older guy who had been doing this for 30 years. He told me he would follow my wife for a few weeks and see what he could find out. He also said he would go back through public records, social media, and any other legal sources to build a complete timeline. 3 weeks later, the investigator called me, said he had something to show me. We met at a mom and pop place in Marietta, somewhere my wife would never go. He handed me a folder thick with photos and documents. He said, "Man, this is exactly what you have been thinking. It's not good." I opened the folder and my stomach went into a knot. Photos of my wife with a strange man, kissing him outside a restaurant in Buckhead, getting into his car, going into a hotel with him in Midtown. But that wasn't even the worst part. There were photos of her with a different man, a completely different guy, same thing, kissing, holding hands, going into hotels. The investigator had documented everything, dates, times, locations. She'd been seeing both of these men regularly for the past 2 years. While I was working my tail off, trying to be a good husband and father, she was out there living a double life. Actually, a triple life. "Do you know who these men are?" I asked him. He said, "Yeah, I do. The first guy is a sales rep, comes into the dermatology clinic where your wife works pretty regularly. That's how they met. The second guy is a personal trainer at the gym your wife joined. Members get a free initial training session, and it looks like your wife took full advantage and then some. Of course she did. The gym she insisted on joining because she wanted to get healthy. Meanwhile, she was meeting up with this trainer." The investigator had more. He found public social media posts from the personal trainer's account where he'd been bragging to friends about sleeping with a married client from the gym. The posts were publicly visible on his profile, and the investigator had screenshot everything before the trainer made his account private. The details matched my wife perfectly. The dermatology clinic, her car model, things only someone who knew her would know. But the most damning evidence was financial. I'd pulled our joint credit card statements myself after hiring the investigator, going back 2 full years. The charges told the whole story: hotels and upscale restaurants during times my wife had claimed to be working late or at the gym. Hundreds of dollars spent at places we have never been together. On our credit card, she was using my money to sleep with these dudes. The investigator had compiled it all into a timeline. He'd also tracked down a mutual acquaintance who'd been at a restaurant when my wife was having lunch with one of her girlfriends about 4 months ago. My wife had been complaining loudly enough that nearby tables could hear. The acquaintance had recognized my wife and overheard her going on about how I was boring, how I didn't make enough money, how she deserved better. The acquaintance later reached out to the investigator after seeing him asking questions around town, and she was willing to provide a statement about what she'd heard. In addition, the investigator had documentation showing that my wife had told me she was working late on at least 47 occasions over the past 2 years. He cross-referenced those dates with her actual work schedule, which he'd obtained through public social media posts where she'd complained about her shift times, and found that on 38 of those 47 occasions, she wasn't scheduled to work late at all. On those dates, credit card charges showed her at hotels. I sat there in that shop, staring at these photos, looking at our credit card statements, reading the social media screenshots, and I felt something inside me break. Not just my heart, my trust, my faith in people, everything. But then something else kicked in. Pure rage. I thanked the investigator, paid him the rest of what I owed him, and took the folder to my truck. I hid it under the back seat, somewhere my wife would never look. That night, I acted like everything was normal. Made dinner, helped our daughter with her homework, watched TV with my wife like we always did. She had no idea I knew. No idea that her whole world was about to come crashing down. See, my wife's 40th birthday was coming up in about 4 weeks. She'd been planning this big party for months, wanted to rent out a venue, invite everyone she knew, make it this huge celebration. Her father was paying for most of it, of course. Nothing but the best for his little princess. She'd been going on about it constantly, planning every detail, obsessing over the guest list. I told her I thought it was a great idea, told her I'd help however I could. She seemed surprised I was being so supportive, but she didn't question it. I called my brother again, told him what I'd found out, showed him the evidence. He was furious, wanted to confront my wife right then and there, but I had a different plan. Her birthday party, I said. That's when we do it, in front of everyone. My brother asked me, "Have you lost your mind? Are you sure about that? That's pretty nuclear." She humiliated me for 2 years, made me feel worthless, spent my money on her affairs. She gets to feel what that's like, just once, in front of everyone who thinks she's so perfect. My brother thought about it, then said, "It sounds like a wonderful idea. All right, what do you need me to do?" Here's what we planned. The party was being held at a nice event space in downtown Atlanta called the Piedmont Room. My wife had invited about 80 people. Her family, her friends from work, her gym friends, our neighbors, some of my family. She'd hired a DJ, a caterer, the whole thing. Her father had dropped about $5,000 on this party. There was going to be a projector and screen set up for a slideshow of photos from my wife's life. You know, the typical birthday party thing, baby photos, childhood memories, wedding pictures, family vacations. My wife had put together the whole presentation herself on a USB drive. What she didn't know was that my brother and I were going to swap out her presentation with one of our own. My brother works in marketing, so he knows his way around PowerPoint and all that stuff. We spent 2 weeks putting together a presentation, using all the evidence the investigator had gathered. Photos of my wife with the sales rep, clearly kissing in public. Photos of my wife with the personal trainer, holding hands, embracing. Copies of our joint credit card statements with the hotel and restaurant charges highlighted, showing dates and amounts. Screenshots of the social media posts where the personal trainer had bragged about the affair. Timestamps showing when and where she'd been cheating. Cross-referenced with times she'd told me she was working late or at the gym. A side-by-side comparison showing her texts to me claiming she was one place, next to credit card charges proving she was somewhere else entirely. We made it look professional, like a real investigation report, because that's what it was. We also made sure every photo was clear, every timestamp was visible, every piece of evidence was irrefutable and legally obtained. I already met with a divorce attorney 3 weeks before the party, a good one my brother had recommended. I had given him copies of everything the investigator had found. He'd looked it over carefully and told me straight up, with this kind of evidence in Georgia, especially with adultery being the clear cause of our separation, my wife wouldn't be getting any alimony. We drafted the divorce papers. I'd signed everything. On the Friday before the party, I went to the courthouse and officially filed for divorce. The attorney had everything ready to serve her the following Monday. The attorney had also confirmed that the house would remain mine. It had been a gift from my mother to me before my marriage, inherited from my grandmother. When my wife and I got married, I had her sign a prenuptial agreement. The prenup only addressed the house as separate property. My father-in-law had actually insisted on having his own lawyer review it at the time, and that lawyer had told my wife it was fair and standard, so she signed it willingly. Now that prenup was about to protect me. We live in Georgia, and Georgia is one of those states where adultery can actually affect the outcome of a divorce. Specifically, under Georgia law, a spouse who commits adultery that causes the separation cannot receive alimony, period. My lawyer was confident that with all the evidence I had, my wife wasn't going to get much of anything. The night of the party came. It was a Saturday evening. My wife looked beautiful. I'll give her that. She'd gotten her hair done, bought a new dress with her father's money, was all smiles. She was in her element, being the center of attention. She had no idea what was coming. Everyone showed up. Her parents, her sister, her two brothers, her friends from the dermatology clinic, people from the gym, our neighbors, my family members. I saw the sales rep there, dressed in a suit, making small talk with people from my wife's work. She invited him under the guise of him being a friend from work. I saw the personal trainer there, wearing tight jeans and a button-up shirt, chatting with the gym crowd. She actually invited both of the men she was cheating with to her birthday party. The audacity of this woman was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. I guess she figured with 80 people there, she could keep them separated in the crowd, maybe even enjoy the thrill of having them both in the same room. I played my part perfectly, wished her happy birthday, gave her a kiss, acted like the devoted husband, handed her a card with a generic birthday message. My brother was there early. He arrived during setup with his laptop. He told the venue coordinator that he was putting together a special video presentation and needed to test the projection system. The venue had a standard setup where you could connect a laptop directly to their projector via HDMI. My brother had brought the presentation on his laptop and would be controlling it directly, simple and clean, no USB drive for anyone to intercept. My sister was there too, with our daughter. We agreed beforehand that when the presentation was announced, my sister would tell our daughter she wanted to show her the courtyard fountain outside, get her out of the room before anything happened. Our daughter didn't need to see this. She didn't need to be in that room when her mother's life imploded. About an hour into the party, my father-in-law got everyone's attention. He clinked his glass, and the room quieted down. He gave this big speech about how proud he was of his daughter, how she'd grown into such an amazing woman, how beautiful she was, how lucky I was to have her. People clapped. My wife was beaming, soaking it all in. Then he said, "And now, my son-in-law has put together a special presentation to celebrate her life and our wonderful family. Let's dim the lights and take a look." My wife looked at me, genuinely surprised. I hadn't told her I was doing a presentation. I just gave her a devilish grin and gave her a small nod. I saw my sister quietly take our daughter's hand and start walking toward the exit, saying something cheerful about showing her the pretty fountain outside. The lights went down. The room fell into darkness except for the projector warming up. My brother's laptop screen glowed in the back of the room. The projector turned on, and the first slide came up on the big screen. It said, "A 2-year investigation. The truth about my wife's secret life." I heard my wife gasp, sharp, audible, cutting through the silence. The room went completely silent. You could hear people shifting uncomfortably in their seats. The next slide showed a photo of her and the sales rep kissing outside a restaurant in Buckhead. The timestamp was clearly visible in the corner, 7:43 p.m., March 15th, 2 years ago. Below the photo, text read, "Told husband she was working late." The slide after that showed her and the personal trainer holding hands walking into a hotel in Midtown. Timestamp, 2:17 p.m., June 22nd, a year and a half ago. Text below, "Told husband she was at the gym." People started murmuring. The murmurs grew louder with each passing second. My wife looked like she saw a ghost and putting her hands over her mouth. Even in the dim light, I could see all the color drain from her face. She screamed, "What the hell is this? Turn it off. Turn it off. Right now." But my brother was in the back of the room with his laptop, and he wasn't stopping. The presentation continued. More slides, more photos, different restaurants, different hotels, different dates spanning 2 full years, the sales rep's car in a hotel parking lot with my wife getting in, the personal trainer with his arm around my wife at a bar in Virginia Highland. 2 years of evidence laid out in chronological order. Then came the credit card statements, our joint credit card, line items highlighted in bright yellow, $287 at a boutique hotel in Midtown on a Wednesday afternoon, $156 at an upscale steakhouse on a Thursday evening, $198 at another hotel on a Saturday afternoon when she told me she was shopping with her girlfriends, $341 at a romantic restaurant in Buckhead on our anniversary while I'd been home with our daughter. Dozens of charges, hundreds and hundreds of dollars, my money, funding her affairs, the slide read, all charged to our joint credit card, all on dates she claimed to be working, at the gym or with friends. Then came the screenshots, social media posts from the personal trainer's public profile, bragging to his friends. This married chick from the gym can't get enough. Her husband has no idea works at Walmart while I'm working her out. Posts describing details that matched my wife perfectly. The dermatology clinic where she worked, her car make and model, things only someone who knew her intimately would know. The room erupted. People were shouting, gasping. Someone in the back was definitely laughing nervously. Others were yelling, "Oh my God," over and over. My mother-in-law started crying, loud sobs that carried across the room. My wife's sister looked absolutely horrified, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. My wife tried to run toward my brother to stop the laptop, but she was in heels and a tight dress. She stumbled. Her brother caught her by the arm. The presentation kept going. More evidence, more photos showing her leaving hotels, adjusting her clothes, checking her makeup, a side-by-side comparison. Her text to me saying, "Working late, don't wait up," next to a credit card charge at a hotel at the exact same timestamp. Another comparison. Her text saying, "At the gym, might grab dinner after," next to a charge at an expensive restaurant, with a photo of the personal trainer going into that same restaurant at the same time. Then came the statement from the acquaintance who overheard my wife at the restaurant. A slide with bullet points of what my wife had said. "He's so boring. All he does is work at Walmart and come home. My dad was right. I should have married someone with real ambition. I deserve better than a discount retail manager. I'm only staying because of our daughter and because leaving would mean actually supporting myself. Right now, he pays for everything, and I can spend my money however I want." The investigator had been thorough, brutally thorough. "You're insane," my wife screamed at me. "You're a psycho. How could you do this? How could you ruin my birthday?" Her voice was shrill, breaking, desperate. "How could I do this?" I said, standing up slowly. "How could you cheat on me for 2 years? How could you spend my money on your affairs? How could you bring these men into our lives? How could you disrespect our daughter like this? How could you make me feel worthless while you lived a double life?" Her father jumped up from his seat. His face was bright red, absolutely furious. "You had no right to humiliate her like this. This is her birthday. This is her party that I paid for. You've ruined everything. And she had no right to humiliate me for 2 years while I worked my tail off to provide for this family. She had no right to spend our money on hotel rooms with other men. She had no right to lie to my face every single day. But here we are." My brother-in-law, my wife's younger brother, stood up and looked directly at her. "Is this true? Did you really do all of this?" My wife was sobbing now, her carefully done makeup running down her face in black streaks, mascara and eyeliner creating dark rivers on her cheeks. She couldn't even form words, just sobs and gasping breaths. The presentation ended with one final slide, white text on a black background. It read, I filed for divorce last Friday. You'll be served the papers Monday morning. The house is mine. It was a gift from my mother before our marriage, protected by the prenuptial agreement you signed. Under Georgia law, your adultery bars you from receiving any alimony. I have filed for primary custody of our daughter. This marriage is over. The screen went black. Someone turned the lights back on. The sudden brightness was almost painful after the darkness. The party fell apart immediately. People started leaving right away. Some were practically running for the exits, desperate to escape the awkwardness. The sales rep had already disappeared, gone before the lights even came back up. The personal trainer was trying to slip out quietly, but one of the gym friends, a woman he apparently also slept with, based on her reaction, confronted him in the doorway. I heard shouting, heard her calling him a piece of trash. Some people came up to me, a few of my co-workers who'd been invited, my neighbor from across the street, my cousin. They said they were sorry, said they had no idea this was happening to me, said they hoped I'd be okay, said my wife didn't deserve me. Others just wanted to get out of there as fast as possible, didn't want to be part of the drama, didn't want to take sides, just wanted to leave and pretend they'd never witnessed this. My wife was sobbing uncontrollably. Her mother was trying to comfort her, holding her while she hyperventilated. My wife was literally gasping for air between sobs. Her sister was crying too, though I couldn't tell if it was from my wife or from the shock of what she just learned. Her father was still yelling at me, calling me every name in the book: coward, psycho, vindictive bastard, cruel son of a bitch. He was screaming that I would pay for this, that he'd make sure I regretted it, that he'd destroy me in court. I didn't engage, didn't say a word back to him. I just walked toward the exit, kept my head up, kept walking. My brother followed me, carrying his laptop. "You okay?" he asked once we were in the hallway. "I will be," I said, and I meant it. I found our daughter outside with my sister in the courtyard. She was looking at the fountain, watching the water flow over the stones, illuminated by colored lights. She turned when she heard us approaching. Her face was innocent, unaware of what had just happened inside. "Dad, what happened? Why is everyone leaving already?" I heard yelling from inside. I knelt down to her level so we were eye to eye. "Your mom and I are going to be getting a divorce, sweetheart," I told her as gently as I could. "But it has nothing to do with you. We both love you very much. That will never ever change." Her face crumpled like I just crushed her world, which I guess I had. "Why? What happened? What did you do?" Sometimes adults make mistakes. Your mom made some choices that hurt our marriage very badly, but you didn't do anything wrong. None of this is your fault. Do you understand me? She started crying, and I held her, pulled her close, and let her cry into my shoulder. This was the part that killed me. This was the part I dreaded more than anything. Our daughter didn't deserve any of this. She didn't ask for her mother to be a cheater. She didn't ask for her father to expose it at a birthday party in front of 80 people. She was just an 11-year-old kid who wanted her parents to love each other. But I couldn't keep living a lie. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. I couldn't let her grow up thinking this was what marriage was supposed to look like, that it was normal for one spouse to disrespect the other, that betrayal was acceptable, that you could treat people like garbage without consequences. The next Monday morning, my wife was served with divorce papers at the house. I'd already moved some of my things to my brother's place for a few days to give her space to process everything. She called me immediately after being served, screaming into the phone, threatening to take me for everything I had, threatening to make sure I never saw our daughter again, threatening to have her father's lawyers destroy me, calling me every horrible name she could think of. I didn't engage, didn't yell back, didn't defend myself, just told her calmly to talk to my lawyer and hung up. See, here's the thing that she didn't seem to understand. The house we lived in, that was a gift from my mother to me before my wife and I got married. My mother had inherited it from my grandmother and signed it over to me when I was 30 years old. 2 years before I even met my wife, it was in my name only, always had been. And when my wife and I got married, I had her sign a prenuptial agreement that acknowledged the house was mine and would remain separate property regardless of what happened in our marriage. The prenup only addressed the house as separate property. My father-in-law had actually insisted on having his own lawyer review the prenup at the time, wanting to make sure his daughter wasn't being taken advantage of. That lawyer had advised my wife that the prenup was fair and standard, that protecting inherited property was normal and didn't disadvantage her in any way. So she signed it willingly, never thought twice about it, never imagined a scenario where it would actually matter. Now it mattered more than anything. Specifically, under Georgia law, a spouse who commits adultery that causes a separation cannot receive alimony. It's an absolute bar. No exceptions. No wiggle room. My lawyer had explained it clearly. Proved the adultery caused the separation, and she gets zero spousal support. Not reduced alimony. Not temporary alimony. Zero. My lawyer was confident that with all the evidence I had, my wife wasn't going to get much of anything. The divorce process took about 7 months. It was ugly. It was brutal. My father-in-law hired my wife an expensive lawyer from one of the big firms in Atlanta, the kind that charges $500 an hour. They tried everything. They tried to fight for alimony, arguing that the affairs were not the cause of the separation. They tried to argue for the house, claiming she'd contributed to maintaining it. They tried to get full custody of our daughter, painting me as an abusive, vindictive husband who would emotionally traumatize my wife. They tried to claim I was an unfit father for publicly humiliating my wife at her birthday party. But the evidence was overwhelming. Mountains of it, photographs taken in public places, credit card statements I accessed, social media posts that were publicly visible, testimony from witnesses, timeline documentation, all legally obtained, all admissible in court, all irrefutable, that our marriage had other problems that led to the breakdown, that I'd been emotionally distant, that I'd neglected her needs. My lawyer countered with a clear timeline. The affair started 2 years ago, and that's exactly when the distance, coldness, and intimacy problems began. Before that, we had a completely normal marriage, regular intimacy, family dinners, weekend outings with our daughter, date nights, affection, communication. Everything changed precisely when the affair started. Her lawyer tried to claim I'd been emotionally distant first, that I'd somehow driven her to the affairs through neglect. My lawyer countered with testimony from neighbors, co-workers, and family members. All of them testified that they'd noticed the change in my wife's behavior, not mine. I'd been the same person throughout our entire marriage, working hard, coming home, taking care of our daughter, trying to be a good husband. She was the one who changed. She was the one who'd become cold and distant. She was the one who'd started the affairs. The judge wasn't buying what her expensive lawyer was selling. At the final hearing, which took place 7 months after I'd filed, the judge looked over all the evidence one more time, flipped through photos, reviewed credit card statements, read through the investigator's report. Then he looked directly at my wife. "Ma'am, your behavior throughout this marriage has been reprehensible. You engaged in multiple extramarital affairs over an extended period of time. The evidence clearly and overwhelmingly shows these affairs were the direct cause of the marital breakdown. You showed no remorse when confronted. You spent significant marital funds on these extramarital relationships. You betrayed your husband's trust repeatedly and systematically, and you attempted to manipulate these proceedings by claiming you were somehow the victim here. I'm ruling in favor of your husband on nearly every count." My wife started crying again. Quiet tears this time, not the dramatic sobbing from the party. Her expensive lawyer put a hand on her shoulder, but said nothing. There was nothing to say. The ruling was clear. My wife got her car, a 2019 Honda Accord, that was titled in her name and that she'd been making payments on from her paycheck. She got a portion of our joint savings, about $15,000 out of the $35,000 we had saved over the years, about 43%. The rest stayed with me. She got some furniture, mostly stuff from her old apartment that she brought into the marriage. A couch, a dresser, some kitchen items, decorations. That was it. I got the house, free and clear, completely protected by the prenup. I got primary physical custody of our daughter, with joint legal custody. My wife got visitation every other weekend from Friday evening through Sunday evening, plus Wednesday evening dinners from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., and alternating major holidays. I got the majority of our joint savings. I got to keep my dignity. Her lawyer tried to argue for a portion of my Walmart retirement account that I'd been building for 18 years. The judge granted her a portion of the retirement funds that had been accumulated during our 13-year marriage only, about $22,000 worth out of the total account. But that was the only real compromise he made. Everything else went my way. My father-in-law was absolutely furious with the outcome. He filed an appeal immediately, spent probably another $30,000 on lawyers trying to overturn the decision, trying to get alimony reinstated, trying to get more custody time, trying to challenge the prenup. It didn't go anywhere. The appellate court reviewed everything and denied the appeal. The evidence was too solid. The timeline was too clear. Georgia law was too explicit. Adultery caused the separation. No alimony and case closed. My wife moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Brookhaven that her father pays for. Nice place, probably $2,000 a month. He's still supporting her financially, still treating her like his little princess who can do no wrong, still blaming me for everything. Last I heard, she's still working at the dermatology clinic, though she had to transfer to a different location on the other side of town. Working at her original office became impossible after the scandal. Too many people knew what happened. The clinic management quietly offered her the transfer, and she took it. I doubt the sales rep comes around anymore to any of their locations. I heard that his company found out about the affair and the very public scandal. They quietly let him go about 4 months after the party. Something about maintaining professional relationships with clients and vendors. Something about company image. He apparently moved to another state. No idea what happened with the personal trainer in the long run. I heard he lost several clients at the gym once word got around about what happened, about him sleeping with a married client, about him bragging about it on social media. Bad for business, I guess. I think he might have moved to a different gym, but I'm not sure. Don't really care either. Our daughter is doing okay, all things considered. She's in therapy twice a month, working through everything with a good child psychologist, processing the divorce, processing the changes in her life, processing her complicated feelings about what her mother did. She still sees her mother every other weekend and on Wednesday evenings for dinner, but their relationship is strained. You can see it when my wife picks her up. The awkward silences, the lack of warmth, the distance. Our daughter is 11 years old, not stupid. She knows something bad happened, even though I've kept my promise and never said a single negative word about her mother in front of her. I've never told her the details. I've never explained about the affairs. I've never shown her the evidence. But kids pick up on things. They're more perceptive than we give them credit for. I'm sure she's overheard adults talking when they thought she wasn't listening. I'm sure she's picked up on the tension during exchanges. She's smart enough to have figured out that her mother did something wrong, something that hurt me badly. About 8 months after the divorce was finalized, she asked me directly one night while I was tucking her into bed, "Dad, did Mom cheat on you?" I paused, took a deep breath, thought carefully about how to answer, how much to say, how honest to be. Yes, she did, I finally said, deciding honesty was better than lies. But that was between your mom and me. It doesn't change that she loves you very much. Did you really show everyone at her party? I did. Why? Because I was hurt and angry, and I wanted people to know the truth. I said honestly. I wanted people to see what really happened. I wanted them to understand why our marriage was ending. Maybe it wasn't the best way to handle it. Maybe I could have done it differently, but it's what I did, and I can't change it now. She was quiet for a long time, just looking at me with those big eyes that looked so much like mine. Then she said something that surprised me. She said she was sorry that this happened. I told her, don't be sorry. She didn't do anything. It was her mother who betrayed us. I'm still at Walmart, working and taking care of my daughter. I've got our daughter living with me full-time during the school week. We've established a good routine. Breakfast together before school, homework help in the evenings, family dinner every night, weekend activities when she's not with her mother. I've got my house completely paid off thanks to my mother and grandmother. No mortgage hanging over my head, just property taxes and maintenance. I've got my self-respect back. I've got my dignity. I know who I am again. I started going to therapy too, about 2 months after the divorce was filed. My therapist has helped me work through all of it. He asked me early in our sessions to reflect on how I'd handled the exposure and whether I'd do anything differently if I could go back. I told him honestly, I don't know. Part of me thinks I should have handled it privately, filed for divorce quietly, let the evidence speak for itself in court, taken the high road, been the bigger person. Maybe that would have been better for our daughter. Maybe that would have been more mature. Maybe I should regret it. Maybe a better person would have handled it differently. But you know what? The other part of me doesn't regret it at all. My wife spent 2 years lying to my face every single day. 2 years making me feel like I wasn't good enough, like I was the problem, like I was boring and insufficient and not worth her time. 2 years sneaking around with 2 different men while I was home taking care of our daughter and working 50 hours a week to support our family. 2 years spending my money on hotel rooms and fancy dinners with other men. She humiliated me in private for 2 years, made me doubt myself, made me feel worthless, made me question my own sanity. I humiliated her in public for one night, one single night, and honestly, she had the audacity to invite both of her affair partners to her birthday party, both of them in the same room, at the same celebration. She thought she was so clever. She thought she could juggle her perfect life with her 2 side pieces and nobody would ever know. She thought she could keep treating me like I was beneath her while she lived it up on my dime. She disrespected our marriage for 2 years. She disrespected our daughter by risking our family for cheap thrills. So yeah, I exposed her in front of everyone at her 40th birthday party that her father paid $5,000 for, with a PowerPoint presentation, with a private investigator's evidence, with 2 years worth of documented proof. Some people have told me I'm their hero, that I did what they wish they'd had the courage to do, that cheaters deserve to be exposed, that my wife got exactly what she deserved, that public humiliation is appropriate justice for 2 years of private betrayal. Others have called me petty and cruel, said I'm just as bad as her for stooping to that level, said I should have been the bigger person, said I traumatized everyone at that party for my own revenge, said I damaged our daughter by making the divorce so public and dramatic. I've heard it all. I've been called everything from a hero to a monster. I don't know what I am, probably somewhere in between. I just know I couldn't let her keep getting away with it. I couldn't let her paint herself as the victim when the divorce went through. I couldn't let her family and friends think I was the problem. I couldn't let them think I was the reason our marriage failed. I couldn't let her father keep acting like his daughter was perfect and I was just lucky to have her, like I should be grateful she married someone like me. So I showed them the truth, all of it, in high definition, with timestamps and documentation, in front of 80 people, at the party her father paid for, at the celebration where she was supposed to be, the center of attention for all the right reasons, and I don't regret it. At least, I don't think I do. Most days, I'm okay with what I did, but some nights, when I'm lying in bed alone, I wonder if I went too far, if I could have protected our daughter better by handling it differently, if the public humiliation was worth the satisfaction I felt in that moment, if I'm really any better than her for what I did. I don't have all the answers. I'm not sure anyone does. All I know is that I'm moving forward. I'm rebuilding my life. I'm being the best father I can be to our daughter. I'm healing, slowly but surely. So, I'm asking you, am I the jerk for exposing my cheating wife at her 40th birthday party? Or did she get exactly what she deserved? You decide.